Welcome to the REI Diamond Interview, your source for real estate investment jewels of wisdom with Dan Breslin.
Welcome to the REI Diamond Interview. Receive this as part of your REI Diamonds newsletter subscription. Today, this is Dan Breslin. I'm here with Josh Buchter and Bob Morales from Better Qualified. Better Qualified handles credit repair, and they also do some business credit establishment for people with LLCs and things of that nature. So first, I'll have Bob introduce himself. Bob, you there?
Yes, I am. How you doing, guys? This is Bob Morales. I head up the business credit program for Better Qualified. We run under the BQ Business umbrella.
Appreciate that, Bob. And then we also have Josh on the line. And if anybody's listening who comes out to the ring meetings in Philadelphia, Josh is a familiar face, and he's kind of the point of contact for the company. So, Josh, you want to come on and introduce yourself?
Yes, sir. Thanks for having us on the call today, Dan. Really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to come out to your events at the Man Young Brewery. I focus mainly on, business development with Better Qualified. I do a lot of business with real estate investors, real estate agents, mortgage brokers, basically anybody whose work involves credit. So we got the pleasure of having Bob Morales on the line today. He knows all the ins and outs of business credit, and we're going to clear up a lot of things and make it relatable to each and every one of your businesses today. So thanks for the opportunity.
Appreciate that, Josh. Thank you guys both for coming on. So, Bob, I guess we should start off and just kind of give a little bit of a background. I guess for our audience here, we have people who are typically buying real estate, and obviously the ability to buy more real estate is something that's important to our listeners. Generally, people will buy a property, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties, but after a certain number of properties in their own personal name, if they haven't planned from the beginning and the outset with LLCs and setting up businesses and things of that nature, they reach a limit to the amount of mortgages that they can have in their own name. So I think knowing that that is going to be our target qualified prospect here on the phone, can you give me like a background and just kind of a little bit of an education as far as, what is business credit and what would be the benefit of having business credit and setting it up?
Well, the true benefit is the fact that if you already have an LLC established, it gives you the opportunity for that company to become self-sufficient if done correctly. You can build credit and give yourself basically a new identity. As you said, your personal credit at some point is going to reach, its limits from a debt-to-income ratio. The beauty of business credit, that does not come into play at all. It's just based off of you establishing credit and building it the right way so you can truly own properties straight out, commercial properties, solely through a tax ID number. It has nothing to do with your Social Security number.
Interesting. So a debt-to-income ratio won't come into play at a later point then?
At some point, what we do in the premise of building this is, like I said, separating your personal credit from your business credit. Now, this is something that's evolving on a day-to-day basis pretty much, the types of loans that you can get through your company. But the whole idea, like I said, is to run as a separate entity. So it's totally separate from anything to do with any personal guarantees. So it's just based off of establishing a payment history for your company and building that history. So debt-to-income ratio will not come into play. Now, if you're going an alternate route and you're doing a hybrid loan where you might combine your personal credit and your business credit, the beauty of it is that if your business credit is set up the right way, your personal credit only comes into play as a so-called cosigner. Everything will still only report on your business credit, so it'll never show on your personal credit report.
So in a sense, a few years ago, you used to be able to take a loan and not have to personally guarantee it. But what you're referring to is kind of the personal guarantee aspect that the lenders are requiring now in addition to the LLC's credit. Right, Bob?
No, there's no personal guarantee. The only time that it would actually show on your personal credit and the only time it would come into play on personal credit is if the loan defaults. But if you put yourself in a position where you're capturing a commercial property as an investment property that's going to generate revenue, basically it'll just feed itself the entire time. So any income that you're receiving from that commercial property will basically go to paying the mortgage. So you're never in a position where your personal credit has to come into play. As long as that loan stays in good standings, it'll never show on your personal credit, and it has nothing to do with your debt-to-income ratio.
Got it. So what if I was somebody who had some things, from the real estate market collapse 4 or 5 years ago, foreclosures, things of that nature? Like, do I need to have strong personal credit to still make moves with my business credit, Bob?
Not necessarily. I mean, it definitely helps. It's always going to be a benefit because, like I said, if you run into a situation where you needed something short term, because there's going to be certain things that come into the criteria for how much you're going to be able to borrow. It's going to tie into the length of time that you're in business, the number of accounts that you have outstanding, the dollar amount in credit that you're showing available. So the more things that you have, non-personally guaranteed, solely under your business credit, the stronger your credit profile is. It's actually the reverse. On the personal side, your debt-to-income ratio is going to limit you. On the business credit side, the more credit that you have available and that you're current on, the more credit that they're going to allow to you.
What will be like the maximum credit limit that you've seen someone build up to through using your system?
I've seen short-termists turn around and get individuals upwards of $400,000 or $500,000 credit within 5 to 6 months. I've seen us find individuals who had difficulty getting loans and using our program the correct way because they already had the groundwork laid for their business credit profile. We've got upwards of $700,000-$800,000 in a very short period of time, less than 3 months. Now, those are rare circumstances because it has to be built correctly. But if this is done the right way, the foundation has to be laid correctly. It's kind of like a recipe. You can take all the ingredients and just throw them in the bowl. It's not going to work out. But if you add the eggs and the flour and everything at the right time, it's going to build the foundation correctly. The flour is going to rise the right way. Now, it's the same premise. You have to establish 3 levels of credit. And a lot of people want to jump the gun. They want to go from vendor credit right to cash credit, or they just want to go at store level. It's something that has to be built properly. And as long as those steps are followed, the program, the ability for you to build credit is just your ability to make payments. As long as you're continuing to stay in good standings with these loans, there's no limit.
Got it. And I do have a couple other details I want to ask about that, but one thing that I wanted to clear up, because I know people are wondering, the $400,000 to $500,000 on that great example, I mean, are we talking like lines of credit for the LLC, or is that, a Home Depot card for $50,000 and a Lowe's card for $50,000? Can you give me an example of the types of credit that number was derived from?
That particular individual was just a one-time purchase. It was $450,000, and it was a one-time purchase. But, I mean, being at the beginning when you're building it, it is going to be lines of credit with Home Depot. In essence, you need to establish 3 levels of credit: vendor credit, store-level credit, and then cash credit. But there also comes a seasoning standpoint that comes into play, and it's not seasoning from where your money's standing. It's the length of time that your company's in business. It's kind of like a fail-safe. They're not looking to support shelf companies or anything like that. What they want to do is they want to see a recurring history. They want to see, revolving 30-day trade payments. So in essence, you need to have a certain number of, on the business credit side, they're called experiences instead of trade lines, but you're going to need to have a certain number of active experiences. You're going to need to have certain dollar amounts that you follow. And it's going to have to be something that's on a recurring basis. So as long as
basically they want to see the money cycling in and out of that business account.
Well, of course, because that's where it's showing that there's a sustainability aspect to it. I mean, we're not going to find your money at, like cash advances or merchant capital lending. So these are taking you to financial institutions that have certain criteria that they need to follow. There's a very black and white aspect to it, so there's going to be certain check marks that you need to follow. If they're on the correct side of the page, you're going to get approved. And we're making sure that your business credit profile is showing the type of background and history and stability that is going to warrant you being able to get approved.
Got it. So what's the specific difference between personal and business credit?
Personal credit side is always going to be tied into a debt-to-income ratio. I don't care how much money you make. At some point, you're going to be limited. And if you're not limited, you can still go out and get credit, but you're going to have to put down larger down payments. You're going to get hit with higher interest rates. On the business credit side, like I said, it's establishing a payment history. It's making sure that you have the correct number of experiences. It's going to come down to your trade lines. So it's, if you're walking in and your debt-to-income ratio is at 13%, you pretty much write your own ticket. As long as you have a solid credit and a score. A credit score itself isn't a magic wand. It's being able to use it the right way. On the business credit side, there's over 500,000 companies that issue credit. only 6,000 of them actually report to the business credit bureaus. So you have to leverage it with the right types of lenders, and that's the important thing.
That makes sense. Now, are we talking like Experian, TransUnion? Like, who do we have here that, reports the credit agency for businesses, Bob?
You're going to have, it's going to be the bureaus themselves. You're going to have TransUnion. You're going to have Dun & Bradstreet. So depending on who it is that you're using and who recognizes what, and that's what we do. Not only do we just put you in a position where we get you a credit score, we also work with lenders that we know are going to follow certain lending criteria. So, just like the bank has an underwriter, so do we. We have an underwriter who knows, based on the background that we've helped develop, where you're going to get approved.
That makes sense. So, like, give me a couple examples of what type of financing I can expect to qualify for if I put together a strong business credit profile.
Well, as you mentioned, a lot of the individuals and the companies that you're dealing with are purchasing homes. So who's doing the reclamation projects on them? Do you have another company set up that's coming in and doing the work for the repair? If that's the case, it's very simple, because then you can build it through the material costs. At some point, it could be anything from, automobiles, equipment financing, corporate credit cards, lines of credit at certain stores, like you said, Home Depot, Lowe's, General Builders. If you're in the restaurant business, Restaurant Depot. So it could be equipment financing for refrigerators, deep fryers, whatever it might be. So with the companies that we've set up alliances with, we know where we're going to be able to take you for what it is that you need. So it's not really tied into any specific vertical market. We can get you whatever you need across the board.
Is it realistic for me to expect to build up a decent, strong business credit profile and then be able to get mortgage financing easier than I would be able to if I don't go through this process, Bob, for rental properties?
Well, I wasn't following you too much. What do you mean as far as being able to get a mortgage? A commercial mortgage for the company is going to take you some time. You're going to have to develop a profile. Realistically, you're going to have a profile that's been developed for at least, I'd say, 12 to 18 months. That's really been focused on. So the idea is spending your money in the proper places. So all of your operating expenses are basically what drives this. So as long as you're using the credit that's available to you with the recognized vendors, it's going to continuously build a credit history for you, and it's going to strengthen your portfolio.
That makes sense. Can you give me an example of what the creditors are looking for in applications?
Well, there's a lot of small little things that'll actually limit what people do. Again, from a loan officer's perspective, when you're looking at a strong financial institution, they want to make sure that they're dealing with somebody that's been in business for a certain amount of time. How long has the company been around? What kind of rankings do they have? What's their ability to pay back? How many trade lines are you dealing with? Are they slow pay, late pay? So it depends. Across the board, there's going to be different criteria, but there's a lot of smaller things that go into it. Could be tied into, as smaller thing as free email addresses, using a Yahoo or a Gmail or something like that, compared to, Tom at justushomeconstruction.com. Why is someone that, is basically telling me that their company does $1 million a year still using a Yahoo or a Gmail address? Because we both know that nobody uses the Yellow Pages anymore, so the easiest way to find you is through your website. So if you don't have the exposure to a website, it's about making yourself presentable. It's about making sure that everything's in place for you to get approved. So it's everything soup to nuts. So we got to make sure that your foundation is right, that all of your addresses are reporting correctly with the credit bureaus, that your phone numbers match up, that there's a website, no P.O. boxes, that it's an actual commercial address. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Now, I'm just guessing here, Bob, but if I have all those details in line, things are going to go better. But if there's a few things that are off, are there like automatic computer approve or deny programs that some of these lenders have? And it's like, if your address doesn't match up with this other thing, it just automatically disqualifies you. Is that why it's so important? Or is there literally an underwriter who's looking at each one of these individual details when they make their decision? Well,
there's always going to be an underwriter tied in, and depending on how many check marks are on the correct side of the page, that's how it's going to break down. So, it's not going to be an automatic disqualification if your address doesn't match up. It just means that something wasn't updated with one of the bureaus. So that could be as simple as, you have to understand, when you're dealing with the credit bureau, and any credit bureau on the personal side or on the business side, all they do is collect information. They don't do anything to correct it. That's always left in the hands of the individual. So even on a personal credit report, if there's something on there that was on there accidentally and you don't try to get it removed, it'll stay there forever and it'll always affect your credit until you step forward and say, hey, this needs to be corrected. And that's the downside about dealing with any credit bureau. They don't want to, if it was simple to just call up and say, hey, this doesn't belong on my credit report, there's an inaccurate finding. If they just removed it, what's the use of anybody dealing with them if all it takes is one phone call? So the problem is you're dealing with companies that don't want to act. They don't want to move. They just want to do what's easy. They want to take public information, put it out there, and charge a fee for it. So it's up to you to make sure that everything's right within your profile so you do get approved.
That makes sense. Now, I'm a real estate investor, so I'm kind of wondering, I know a lot of people who will be listening to this are, if I don't have a down payment for a loan, can I go through this process with you guys, 6 months, 12 months, build business credit, and then qualify for a term loan that I could use for like a down payment to buy a larger property, Bob?
Without a doubt. And I think, and especially within the real estate field, you'll see that a lot of individuals own more than one LLC. So you have the opportunity where some term loans do have restrictions that you cannot use them for real estate. So it's as simple as if you set everything up the right way. So let's say you have a holding company that's going to make the purchase, but at the same time you also own a company that does the work within these homes before you go and resell them. It's as simple as making a payment from one to the other. So if you have credit in both companies, you can take a term loan, make a payment to the other company, which is a payment. So it's only just coming up with you 20 to 25%. So you do have the opportunity depending on what the companies are for, because there can be some limits, though. Not every company will offer a loan that can be used for real estate. So there are some limitations.
Got it. So I fix and flip a lot of properties myself. Are there a specific plan or a specific strategy that would help a guy like myself? Like, what could I realistically expect to get if my credit was decent? I mean, would it be realistic for me to have in 12 months or 18 months maybe like a $100,000 line? Would we be able to go for like $250,000 line? Or maybe even $500,000 or $1 million? Somebody who's well qualified. Is that realistic to expect that we could get a line of credit or multiple lines of credit like that to fix and flip properties without the restriction for real estate?
Without a doubt, especially like you said, if you're putting yourself in a position where you're doing the flipping and you have a company, even at the very least, if you're using an outside contractor, as long as you make the payments and the purchases for the materials that you're going to use within those homes, you can build credit lines that are unlimited. You mentioned within 12 to 18 months. It's very realistic within 12 to 18 months that you'll be able to establish, $100,000, $200,000 lines of credit. But again, it's going to be based on how much you're using it. So if you're turning over a couple of properties, let's say you're working on 3 to 4 properties in a short period of time, and each one of those properties needs $30,000 to $40,000 worth of materials within them. As long as you're making the purchases and showing that revolving credit history where you're making payments on big dollar amounts, because the more you use those credit lines, the easier it is for us to extend them. So if we start out, and we'll use Home Depot for an example, we get you a Home Depot line of credit for, say, $15,000. And over the course of the first 60 days, we've taken it to its max. We've paid it off. We've constantly turned around. We can go back and get those lines extended for you. So it's going to show larger dollar amounts showing on your credit history, which, like I said, on the business side, that's a benefit. It's not a deterrent. It's saying, hey, listen, now they have $200,000 in available credit and they're 90% on time. That's going to give you a strong foundation for us to be able to go out and say, hey, we need a $250,000 line of credit, and that's where it falls into play.
Makes sense. Business credit, could that create an exit strategy, Bob?
That's the first thing that I talk to. Anytime you talk to a business owner, especially in the real estate industry, if you think about it, where's your exit strategy? If you sell your company tomorrow and you don't own a property, what do you walk away with? Not a lot. But
True.
Now, if you put yourself in a position, anybody that's in the real estate field, I'm pretty sure if you've been in it for a period of time, you've come across a property or two that you wish you had the funding to go out and get. Or maybe not even the funding. Maybe you have the monies, but you don't have the ability on your credit to go out and take the mortgage for that property. Now that's your exit strategy. Because now if you can do it solely under your company's name without it affecting your personal credit, you have the ability to just leave it and just reap the reward of all the income that comes in from it. So now your exit strategy is that when you leave, realistically, these properties, depending on the type of property, can pay themselves off in a short period of time. Now you have the ability that you have a fully paid off commercial property, an income-bearing property that's paid off in no time, and it had nothing to do with your personal credit.
Yeah, it allows you to really build up and pay off an asset with the cash flow from the business. Definitely makes sense.
1,000%.
What about seasoning requirements?
That's going to depend on the lenders themselves. And like I said, there's ways around the seasoning aspect also, because from a company standpoint, the money's going in and out of bank accounts so quickly that how are you tracing it? Where's the origin? So if you have, $50,000 a month coming through a bank account, so what do I need? Okay, I need $100,000. Okay, I just received a payment for $100,000 consulting fee.
So that could be, what, a trigger if we don't have the seasoning?
If you don't, well, again, that's going to come down to the individual lenders, but in the majority of cases on these commercial properties that you're doing solely in a company's name, it's not a big issue.
Interesting. Now you mentioned 3 different types of business credit. How would you go about? Could you give me like specifically, individually? I think you said it was vendor credit, store level credit, and then cash credit. Could you give me an example of how we would go about building that business credit, Bob?
Well, again, it's kind of like I said, you have to take everything in certain steps. So you have to establish a recurring history with vendor credit. And that can be anything from, like an Amazon account, a Quill account, something like that, just to show that, and more than anything, they're kind of like starter accounts. But what it does is it lays the foundation. So let's say you're just starting off your company and you don't have business credit established yet. So without a credit score, certain companies aren't going to issue you credit. So you have to deal with smaller companies that will report to the credit bureaus on your behalf, but they might have, they won't have lending requirements. They might only for a bank account tied into the company and make sure that all of your paperwork is filed with state. And based off of that, we'll report to the credit bureaus. So that'll only take 3 reporting cycles to get you to an active score. Like on Dun & Bradstreet, it's called the PAYDEX score. That's going to be the equivalent of a personal FICO score. Then once you have that in place, that's when you can get store-level credit. And that's where you're dealing with nationally recognized companies, Home Depot, Lowe's, Restaurant Depot, Sprint, maybe a rent-a-car service, whatever it might be. But that gives you the ability to also start the process where you can start to go and establish corporate credit cards that are also going to strengthen it. And a lot of times you'll leverage those with, things like Costco's or Sam's or things of that nature.
Got it.
And then
what about cash credit?
Well, cash credit, that's when you're going to start looking at lines of credit. So you're going to have an established history. So it's not something that, it's kind of like a fail-safe if you think about it. They don't want to put you in a situation where companies are going to walk away with non-personally guaranteed $100,000 lines and put them in a situation where they haven't built up to that standpoint. So with cash lines of credit, things like that, it's going to start out, in smaller ranges, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, depending on the type of experiences that you have on your credit report. But I've also seen them climb quickly to where we're getting people, like I said, $100,000 credit cards within a 4 or 5 month time frame.
And do you have referrals for these different offerings of credit for each vendor, store level, and cash credit? Is that something you kind of include when you're doing some consulting and building people's credit
we definitely, 1,000%. Not only have we've gone out and solicited companies, and just it made sense that if you think about it, you have companies that for a fact definitely report, but then you also have other companies that sometimes it just makes sense for them to report. Because if you think about it, a manufacturer never needs to establish business credit, because it's going to be based on, how quickly are they coming back, whatever it might be. So if if I'm a manufacturer of doors and I have resellers, Lowe's doesn't come to, I don't need to check Lowe's business credit. I don't need Home Depot's business credit. I'm pretty sure I can, trust the fact that I can, drop off $100,000 worth of equipment and know that I'm going to get paid. So it depends, again, on where it is that you're taking it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know a lot of people are going to have new LLCs that they're starting up. We have a lot of new investors that come out to our group and who are listening to the information on these calls. Do you have any advice for people who are just getting started from the ground up? Their LLC is not even formed yet, Bob?
I think the biggest thing is to realize that it's never too soon to start building your credit. because the sooner you can separate your business credit from your personal credit. When I first got into this, I was amazed at the credit histories of small business owners. I came in this from the outside, and you would figure that, somebody running a business would have a great credit background. Probably 95% of the individuals that you speak to that run a small business, their personal credit's ruined. And the reason being, if they've been in business for 2, 3, 4 years, any time that they've gone out and tried to establish credit, they've attached their Social Security number. So even if there's someone who keeps up with their payments, at the very least, their debt-to-income ratio has ruined their credit. So you'll be surprised at how many people are stuck in the same opportunity because they can't get out of it, because they can never catch up. And now everything's tied into their personal credit. So now every time you need a credit card and you didn't think to get it through your business credit, you take it on your personal credit, and now your personal credit ties you in where you cannot go out and own 2, 3, 4 different properties. So you're stuck in the one property that you own. And then, again, there's the question of your exit strategy. How do you get out? Well, if everything's signed for in your personal name, you don't own anything.
Now, it sounds like it could be a pretty complex problem if 95% of business owners are either A, haphazardly going about establishing some sort of credit profile, or B, just completely ignorant and blind of the fact that there's a certain way to go about this. I imagine that you guys better qualified. I mean, what could you do for a person in that situation? What could you do for me and my business? Like, where do you come into play, and what's the service you offer me to make this easier, Bob?
Well, what we do is it's twofold. Not only do we work and build your business credit, we'll build, manage, and monitor every aspect of your business credit. So in essence, to some degree, it's like hiring a finance department. Not only are we going to build your credit score, but it's not like we're going to say, okay, here's your credit score, go do what you need to do with it. We're going to turn around and point you in the right direction. So anytime you need some sort of funding, you come to us and we find an opportunity that matches for you. But at the very same time, because our roots come from the personal credit side, we also repair your personal credit as well, and it becomes twofold. Not only do we put you in good standings to move forward, and now it frees up the ability for you to take more than one property on your personal credit while still building your business credit, and you can take properties there as well. It also gives us the opportunity to find you more funding options. Because, like I said, business credit side is still evolving. There are a lot of opportunities where we're coming across a lot of hybrid loans, which will take a combination of your business credit along with your personal credit. And like I said, it's almost as if you have your own built-in cosigner. So if you're sitting there with the plus 700 credit score, the opportunities to get your funding is expanded by 10 times the amount that you would if you were just dealing off of business credit or if you were just dealing off of personal credit. So the combination is just a much stronger equation.
Got it. So if I'm ready to start working with Better Qualified now on my business credit, how do I get started, Bob?
It's simple. You can give us a call at any time. You could reach us at our 800 number, 888-533-8138, and you can just follow the prompts to the business credit program, or you can actually give us a call direct. You can reach me at any time at 732-910-5962. Literally answer my phone 24 hours a day. So if there's anything we can do to point you in the right direction, we're more than happy to help you out.
Appreciate that. And what kind of a cost is involved with this? Do you guys have a one-size-fits-all? Is this kind of like depending on the situation?
Well, it depends on what it is that you need done. Some companies will come to us basically when you're starting out, you need everything soup to nuts. We actually can offer you a lot of the services that you might need. Down the road, building it up initially, it might not be as important for you to have a fully functioning website. You might need that aspect as we're moving forward and we're taking you to situations where we're looking for, that $200,000 line of credit. So it's a full business analysis to make sure that everything is correct, so that there aren't going to come across any small hiccups. So it can vary. I mean, prices can start at anywhere from, $1,500 and work their way up to $5,000, depending on what it is. But we also give you the flexibility, since we know that this is a period of time where we can spread out your payments for you. So we're very accommodating when it comes to that.
Got it. Is there any charge for the initial consultation?
Not totally free of charge. My time for you is...
All right. Well, you did give us the contact information there. Do you have any other final jewels of wisdom to leave with the listeners here, Bob?
Well, I think people have to realize that this is something that needs to be nurtured and developed. It's not something that you can jump in and it's going to happen overnight. So the only thing you mentioned seasoning, and a lot of times the only seasoning that really comes into play is the length of time of your business. So you have to be realistic and realize that, a company that's 12 months old isn't going to reap the same rewards as a company that's 5 years old and established a history. The only thing that we can't change is time.
Got it. Now, is it possible to buy somebody else's business that already has this history built, or is that kind of like
1,000%?
Okay.
You can. I mean, depending on the individual and where it's coming from, but there's a lot of profiles that I've looked at initially and talking to people and been amazed that they haven't been able to go out and find funding because they do already have a strong business profile. They just haven't taken it to the right opportunities. They haven't found the right situation as far as funding.
Makes sense. Well, I got a whole page of notes here that I took down. I can add some contact information below. I appreciate you coming on the call, Bob and Josh. Did you guys have anything final to add before we wrap it up?
The only other thing is, like I said, you can also get our website at betterqualified.com or bqbusiness.com, and that'll also get you some information on the company.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to mention the website as well, but also just to edify the company a little bit, so you can rest assured you'll be in great hands. Better Qualified's been in business for 10 years now. We're A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. We have dedicated lawyers on staff for the personal credit repair side of things. We talked a lot about business credit today, so we'll take care of both angles, both the personal and the business. We've had over 200,000 negative items deleted from the personal credit reports of our clients over the years, and we got a ton of business credit clients qualifying for all types of stuff every day. So we definitely look forward to working with anybody who's interested and offering the free credit consultation. If nothing else, you'll see what your business credit profile looks like now, if there's anything there at all, and you'll get some good information on top of what you heard today. So thanks for everybody's time.
And Josh, are you also qualified to take applications or consult on the business credit side of things if people run into you at the ring meeting?
Of course, absolutely. And anything that I can't answer, I feel to Bob Morales because he's the man when it comes to business credit.
Sounds good. Well, thanks again, guys, for coming on the REI Diamond interview. I got a ton of great information. I'm sure everybody listening is also going to benefit from this. And if you haven't done so already, you can sign up for this newsletter at www.reidiamonds.com, and you'll be notified as new interviews come out. And I look forward to bringing you some more valuable jewels of wisdom for real estate investment.
Thanks for listening to the REI Diamond interview. To receive the REI Diamonds newsletter and interview monthly, sign up now at www.reidiamonds.com.